Hello and welcome to the Ultimatum RHAP-UP. We are here to talk about the finale and the reunion of this amazing season of television. I'm Asia and I'm very excited. I was looking forward to talking about this all week from the moment the episodes dropped. So I cannot wait to dive into these two episodes. So, here with me to discuss these two episodes, of course, we have two of my amazing co hosts. We have the wonderful Frail Mary. Mary, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about this finale. I think that this was probably one of the more anticipated endings of a show we've talked about so far. There was some curiosity into who would or would not end up together. And I think all throughout the finale and then the reunion, we got some surprises. So, got some things to talk about.
Yes, boy, do we. um, and then also, of course, we have the lovely Dr. Evvie Jagoda. Evvie, how are you?
I am doing wonderful, Asia. It is Pride weekend here in Boston, and I have been having a very, very fun weekend thus far. I'm a little tired, but I'm telling you, everywhere I've gone this weekend, people are talking about this show. Like this show is all the rage at Pride here, and I'm just like grateful that we had it. Like, is it perfect? No. Did people make insane
Right.
decisions? Yes. Should the host be queer? Yes. But like this show, I'm so happy we had it. I'm very grateful to Netflix and to the whole cast that they put themselves out there in this way that we get to delight upon, and especially that it came out during Pride Month. So I'm very, very happy, and yeah, I too cannot wait to discuss, especially the reunions. So yes.
Yes. Yes. So before we dive into it all, make sure you go out there and subscribe to the Love at First Sight feed, as well as the reality TV wrap-ups feed. The Love at First Sight feed is where you can get all of our content on the Ultimatum, Queer Love, the Ultimatum, Marry or Move On, the Married at First Sight, Love is Blind, the show Perfect Match. They're just your one-stop shop for all of these love shows that we cover here on Rob Has a Podcast. And make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and review. We want to know if you enjoyed this, and we want to know if they do this again, that you want to see us back. So definitely leave us a 5-star rating and review, and we will surely appreciate it. All right, let's dive in. Oh my gosh. So I have to say, I was shocked. Oh, and let me preface this. If you plan on watching this, I'm too excited over here. If you plan on watching the show, go watch it and then come back. We are going to be all spoiler territory. Okay. So I don't know about y'all, but I was very shocked by pretty much every decision.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it was like everything that you thought would happen didn't happen. I mean, were there any couples that like you're like, okay, that makes sense?
I honestly feel like because like realistically, had like real life, real brain, had to get to the finale, I'm like, they should all break up, probably.
Right.
Right. And so I guess by the end of the after reunion, pretty much everybody was in the right spot, I guess. But yeah, I was also shocked at how like every single couple pretty much said yes, except for Vanessa and Xander. But then also I'm like, I guess you're on TV. It's the safest ending to leave with your partner that you came with. So I guess everyone just reverted to the safe thing, whether or not those relationships actually were going to end in marriage, as we saw
Right.
ultimately.
Right. What about you, Mary? Were you shocked by any of these decisions?
I don't know if shocked is the right word. I felt like there were a couple people who end up getting engaged who I felt like they should have just broken up because I think that there were a lot of people at the reunion who had broken up that you weren't really surprised that they had broken up
Yes.
because they probably shouldn't have gotten engaged in the first place. But sometimes it's easier just to do that on the show and then sort of make decisions later. So I was I was a little surprised that we had pretty much across the board all but one couple get engaged. That I was surprised. I felt like there might have been one other one at least that would not. I can tell you which one that is, or we could wait to talk about it. But I think there was one couple in particular that I was like, fine, get engaged. We know you're going to break up. It's fine. Do whatever you want, but you're going to break up. And then by the total end result, by the end of the show, I agree with Evvie. Like, my big takeaway from almost all of these dating reality shows, but this one in particular, is people are not all good and not all bad when it comes to their relationships.
Yeah.
When you first start watching a show, you want to like immediately jump on the bandwagon, or not the bandwagon, but just pick a person and stand them and root for them. And that's perfectly fine. But that doesn't necessarily mean that their pair is going to work out. And that's okay. Like, it doesn't mean that they're bad people or that they are all wrong necessarily in one way or another. It just means they weren't necessarily compatible. And more people in the world are going to be not compatible with every random person than they are going to be compatible. So I think kind of by the end of these shows, you just see like some people do a really good job of making things work, and most people struggle with that.
Yeah. It was I mean, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with your point, Evvie, with just like the easiest route is just go with who you came with. But they can't act like they aren't unchanged after this experience. As wild as it is, there are things they learn about each other and their partner in this process that can't be ignored. So it's going to impact the relationship regardless.
And on that note, like, I know sometimes people will say like, really, like, the experience, it was only a few weeks, how could that change you so much compared to whatever? Picture that you're not on a TV show, but that you're dating someone for a long time, or you're engaged or whatever, and then someone says, hey, we're gonna like break you up and move you in with someone else to live with a let's just say a friend that maybe you've had a crush on or you find attractive. We're going to move you in a house with them, and you guys are going to pretend to be in a relationship for the next month. You're going to come away with that learning things probably about yourself or your significant other. Like, it's bound to happen. So
yes.
I'm not surprised.
I can say for me, something that I was also thinking about, like, obviously I have, since being on a reality TV show, like I look at these shows in a different way. And I think something that was like really unexpected for me about my time on Survivor is like how much it's like a different experience from your regular life to have people like sit down with you every day, like producers, and like, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? You know what I mean? And I was talking about mostly the game, and yet I had all sorts of like self-discovery around like confidence and gender and like blah, blah, blah. And I can only imagine just like, even take away the other people part. You take a couple, you separate them. And for 3 weeks, the producers ask you, how are you feeling? What do you think about your relationship? What about this? What about that? And people are going to have insights, you know what I mean? And insights when they're separate from each other. And yeah, I feel very unsurprised that a lot of these extremely long-term relationships ultimately did have huge shifts. And I think like, not to like, honestly, I feel like why this show ended up being so cool in some ways is like, especially like the breakups and like what we saw in the reunion is like so real. Like that's like real. Like this was a real relationship. Like Xander and Vanessa, that was a 4-year relationship that we just watched. Like we watched them break up, like real breakup on TV. And it was like, it felt extremely real. And yeah, I'm just like a little bit blown away by the fact that all these people put their real relationships in this real. I mean, it really feels like it really did alter the course of all these people's lives going on the show,
Yeah, they are definitely, I was going to say they're definitely not unchanged, but they're definitely changed from this experience. And so, yeah, I mean, just to that point, just this was, I appreciate them for even being vulnerable enough to go through this experience, because I'm sure, like, obviously we saw that it wasn't easy, but it definitely was a great. I mean, I hope Netflix, this isn't, remember that one time they did the Ultimatum Queer Love, like some years ago? Wouldn't that be cool if they did that again? I hope this starts something new. And, maybe they are trying these different versions, and maybe they will have an Ultimatum Queer Love season 2 and then continue that, and then also continue the Marry or Move On version. So that would be really cool. I mean, yeah. So let's see. The finale started with Yoli and Mal.
Yes.
And, we knew Mal proposed, obviously, coming out of last episode. But this non-yes that Yoli gave Mal was almost heartbreaking.
Yeah. I really feel like from this moment on, I was just felt so bad for Mal, just because it was like, and I'm not saying Mal is perfect, like, and I have some thoughts about Mal too, but like, it just was so clear that it's like, you don't want that for Mal to be how she gets engaged, like Yoli was clearly like so upset. It wasn't like loving. It was kind of like, I mean, it was a little, but it was very much clearly like Yoli was just like upset, kind of like, as we see, I don't know, as it went on, like it became clear, kind of felt a little bit like Yoli was like hedging her bets, like, okay, I'll say yes to this, and then I'll still see what's on the table with Xander later, and it's just like, yes, it was hard to watch. It was hard to watch that scene, I would say.
It was hard to watch, and it made me feel like it's very indicative of how it's like to be on dating apps, right? Where you're like dating someone, you go on a couple dates, you're like, yeah, I like them, but should I stay a little available in case something else comes up?
Yeah.
It reminded me of that, which again, it's hard because like you can agree or disagree with Yoli. I found Mal's patience and like understanding of Yoli's feelings for Xander to be something that really blew me away. I was like, wow, I just wish I could be that way. Because I'm sure like you just picture proposing and like
and not going like this.
There should be a definite answer. It should make you feel confident. Like that's, and even for the couples who got engaged, I would feel like for all of them, if it was me, I would want to say, yeah, we're engaged. We're going to do this again, this proposal again in the real world in a few weeks to like make sure it sticks.
Yes.
Yeah, because it was on theme specifically with this couple. Like Mal said it so many times that she wanted her hell yes, right? And so to not get that and not even get a yes, I mean, it was just like, what took you so long?
Isn't it wild how in the first episode we heard Mal say like Yoli falls in love with other people, and that's something that worries me, is that like, is Yoli really in love with me, or just does Yoli fall in love? And I feel like at the time we were like, well, we haven't seen that to be the case. Like, does, whatever. And then this show just completely showed us, wow, kind of a valid fear for Mal.
Yes.
Exactly what happened.
Yes, totally. And I so agree. Like throughout this whole thing, Mal was super respectful about Yoli's feelings for Xander. And I thought that was really, really sweet. And definitely, again, I think like the like non-monogamy and things like that are fairly common in the queer community. And I feel like there's definitely some of that like language and understanding, I feel like, being brought in by Mal and Yoli. And I don't know, I kind of wish that was more like explicitly talked about in some ways on the show. But yeah. Yoli really did do exactly what Mal said that she was going to do. But then the other thing, okay, the only criticism of Mal is just like, I do really understand why Yoli, it's just like Mal in the show, like, and Yoli said this in the proposal, it's like, your back was up against the wall. You saw that you were going to lose me. And then it's just like, you're a totally different partner and like showing up like so 100%. And like everything that she was saying was like all the exact right stuff, like suspiciously the exact right stuff. Also, Mal was saying like a lot of really, really nice stuff to Lexi at the beginning that then we just like never heard about that ever again. You know what I mean? So I do understand why in the course of their overall relationship, it was maybe hard for Yoli to believe that this was real. And then ultimately, like, who knows exactly what happened after, but like clearly Mal was out. Mal wasn't like, let's work through this forever. Obviously, we don't know like whose fault, blah, blah, blah. But like, you know, I'm just like, it doesn't surprise me. It's like Mal went 100% on like, I am going to do everything I can to keep Yoli. And it doesn't surprise me at all that like, as soon as the show was over, she's like, wait, what the fuck happens? Like, you know what I mean? And like really upset. And then like clearly was really upset watching it back. And there was stuff that she didn't know about, which is all so fair. I just feel like it was like, Mal was definitely like a switch was like on of like, I'm going 100, not necessarily like being maybe fully honest about what her actual feelings about the situation were, maybe.
Yeah, because even just, you know, the acknowledging of Yoli's feelings, acknowledging that Yoli has been open and honest about how Yoli feels about Xander, but then still proposing, even though they weren't in a, as a couple, they weren't in a for sure, like, we are going to do this. It really was just like a Hail Mary. I've done everything on that I could do on my part to keep this going, right? But you know, Mouse does say like, I don't want to feel like I'm, you know, constantly fighting to get you back, though. Like, hey, then this was not the time to propose because Yoli is so unsure. There was not a moment, and maybe they edited it out, but that we saw during this proposal that Yoli said yes. Which is just odd.
I think like, she might have whispered yes at the very beginning, but there was no hell yes. That's for damn sure.
Right.
Well, and it's yes, and then lots of crying. Yes, but I need to let you know I still have feelings for Xander. Yes, and whatever. There were a couple things with Yoli that I feel like were when Yoli goes to talk with Xander later, I'm like, you didn't need to line up the sequence of events in this way. If you really like, there's a difference between I'm honest about my emotions when you ask about them versus I'm going to be upfront and say, hey, Xander, just so you know, I've already accepted a proposal. Now what do you have to say? You know, like there's a difference. I think also probably no one would necessarily even admit it to the show, and I'm not saying they need to, but I think that there's probably at least a little bit of influence from being on the show about like, look, unless I'm 100% sure I don't want to get engaged to this person, probably a good look to go ahead and propose and good look to go ahead and say yes and then deal with it later because it's TV show.
Yeah.
You know, it would take a lot to say I'm going to publicly end my relationship or deny a proposal on a TV show. And I think that probably factors in a little bit.
Yeah. And I wonder how much it was like not present. I mean, it seems very clear that the structure is the only way to leave together is to leave engaged. Right. But I do feel like a lot more damage was probably done to Mal and Yoli's relationship by the fact that they like got engaged in this moment. And then we're still not sure. And then the Yoli Xander cover. It's like if they had just been like, we want to work on it. We're going to keep being together. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's different. That's the question. If you took all of these relationships and you say, don't go on the show, how many of them would end up at the same point? How many of them would end up at the same point, but it would take a lot longer to get there, either for good or for bad? And that's one thing is like, if you're already having the questions, like I do think Vanessa and Xander, if they had never been on this show, might still be together, but probably neither one of them would be getting exactly what they want, like in the end. I don't know. Is it weird that I walked away from the show feeling like out of anybody, they're the only ones that I feel like have a potential of potentially getting back together again? Like, I don't know, maybe not, but it didn't seem impossible.
Yeah. No, I do feel like I do feel like they ended in the best place for both of them as individuals and like probably therefore for a long-term friendship or something. Like I think it was just so the right decision and like to see the growth that they had and like their different thoughts. Like I honestly I posted on Instagram and them in the reunion was the thing that actually made me really emotional. I thought like and I share more about that like when it comes, but yeah, no, I feel like leaving in that place was such a better place to leave than any of these other couples, honestly. I guess maybe Sam and Aussie.
And we'll circle back, of course, to Yoli Mal because there's still definitely more to come. But also, if you're watching this on YouTube and I'm choppy, it's not you, it's me. I'm in a different location today, so we're just making it work. So, Mildred and Tiff. This was something I definitely thought, okay, we're about to see a nice little breakup. We're going to see them go their separate ways. But then for Tiff to take Mildred to like the first place that that they had been as a couple, or like shortly after they met or something. I was like, oh, Tiff is serious about this. This May, like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, that was definitely a giveaway. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh fuck, they're gonna get engaged. That's so dumb. I do feel like this one, and like I think honestly, aside from the Yoli Mal Xander love triangle stuff, I think most of this finale episode, like there was just a lot of monologues and like not like saying that much. But I think like I also feel like even though I'm like, and we clearly see where the relationship ends up in a horrible place by the time of the reunion. But I do think like, I feel like ultimately it made sense to me that they did end up feeling better about the relationship at the end of the show part, because like they did have some growth, right? Like it still clearly wasn't like fixed, and they still have like, you know, there's still horrible things to come in their relationship, but like clearly there were some moments of breakthrough, and I think Tiff basically said as much at the reunion. So like, you know, they were at a good place, so like let's do it. And they did seem like really happy there at the you know, for a moment there, but then you know, obviously that is not how it ended up. So the instinct that they should run away from each other was probably correct.
Yeah, that's the problem with them, is that they would have these moments and they would hold on to those moments like, oh, that's why we should continue this relationship. But the biggest red flag to me during this proposal was when Tiff was spilling their heart out to Mildred, and Mildred goes, are you done talking? Like, why are you picking at the taking turns? That's not how you have a conversation. That in itself should have shown Tiff there has been no change on Mildred's part.
Well, yeah. And I honestly felt like I read that as like maybe Mildred was trying to be like respect, like not cut Tiff off, but then did by like asking. But then it's like you all, yeah, literally communication skills to like have a romantic conversation, like let alone like deal with life. Yeah.
So any takeaways from this proposal, Mary?
The proposal is fine. It's fine. I think this was the couple that I thought there's no way they should be proposing and accepting a proposal here. Like,
yes,
I get it, you like each other, but even in the course of this show, it seems like you in all the scenes we saw, you ended up with more reasons to not be together than to be together. And I know that that's really difficult when you want to be in a relationship and you want marriage and security and all of that, but you have to look at the fact that people in relationships should not be miscommunicating and arguing this often. Like, I know it's kind of a blanket statement. Some people like they, you know, some people like yell and argue as their form of communication, and that's one thing. I've been around people like that, and that's okay. But like just the fundamental like, no, I'm talking. Can I speak? Can I talk? Like, I mean, you don't need to be with someone like that. There are plenty of people out there in the world, and obviously throughout so much of the show, we've seen like the moments where, okay, maybe Tiff is, you know, more to blame for this situation. Okay, maybe Mildred is more to blame for this situation or whatever. But I think the bottom line is just, it's not even really a blame thing. It's just, they're just not compatible.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's literally what it boils down to, because even for Mildred to say, oh yeah, there's so much about us that makes sense. I'm like, it really shouldn't. Like,
yeah.
You could, it reminds me of like math problems when you had to like show your work. You could still get the wrong answer, but you like, it made sense to you how you showed your work, but that doesn't make it right.
Yeah, show your work, people.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it definitely did seem like, even with the proposal, that Tiff was like, you got what you wanted. Like, finally, you got what you wanted. Not, hey, this is us moving forward in our relationship towards marriage.
Yeah, totally.
All right. So the next proposal that we saw was Aussie and Sam. Did y'all think The Rock was funny?
I was so uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. I really, and like, I have no proof, but I feel that Aussie if Sam had been more excited about The Rock, might have stopped at The Rock and not gone for the ring. I think they were waiting to see a little bigger reaction. And then like after they were like, I don't know, The Rock was so awkward. And you could tell Sam was like, what? Like,
Yeah. And Sam even said it went on longer than we saw.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. And like, and after Aussie's like, would you have been fine with just The Rock? And so like, no. And it's like this little joke. It's like, I'm like, I feel like maybe Aussie was
right.
hoping could get away with just The Rock.
I know.
I felt like at the beginning with just The Rock, like even after the proposal, I felt like Sam was like gonna say no. Like I was surprised. I really thought Sam would be like, actually, I've learned a lot about myself, blah, blah, blah. I think they must be a relationship that we only saw like the negative moments in. We pretty much never saw any like positive moments when they first got back together in their like after the swapped marriage. It seemed like they were like, oh yay, debrief, look, we're great. But then we pretty much only saw tension, and I'm sure that there was just a lot we didn't see because there has to be for the viewers to really understand this relationship.
Yeah.
But I think it's also probably a case of they've been together for a while, they clearly know each other, and we're just not going to necessarily understand that from watching it.
I still think Sam's eyes were opened a little bit through this process about what she wanted and just really facing the reality of her relationship with Aussie and how, you know, the finally meeting Aussie's brother and realizing, well, that's going to be a big step when ultimately, you know, Sam is introduced. Is there, I'm curious. So Evvie, do you think that Sam changed her mind because Aussie proposed?
That's an interesting question. I mean, yeah, it's like we kind of didn't see, it's like, and when they started the discussion, their like speeches, it seemed that, you know, Sam was talking about this thing of, you know, there were so many times where you walked away, and then I feel like we didn't really see so much the evolution of like of that getting better in the show part. Like I think we saw like, yes, yeah, like you said, like Sam's emotional growth, Aussie's like big, real, like a lot of trauma really coming up for Aussie and big emotional reactions coming up for Aussie. Yeah, I think the fact, I think Sam wouldn't have said yes to a proposal if she wasn't open to wanting to keep dating Aussie in general. But I don't know. I was really surprised. I was really, really surprised at the way that she said yes, by the way that the vibe was. So yeah. So honestly, maybe just like knowing that like, oh wow, Aussie's doing this thing that like, let alone the fact of like, because Sam like so wants to get married. Like we haven't really heard like that particular thing that much from Sam, but more the idea that like Aussie did this thing that's really uncomfortable for Aussie, like by and confronting this like big fear. But yeah, I don't know. We did see at the reunion, like Aussie's parents still don't know. There's no moves to actually get married. So I'm kind of like, I don't think like the story on this is done, you know?
Yeah, me neither. Because I even watched the 5 minutes after on the Tadum website. And I was thinking we were going to get some type of update like that, but no, it seems like they are still together. But as soon as Sam said yes, I was like, she's settling.
Yeah.
She knows what she needs in her life, and I feel like saying yes is the comfortable thing. Aussie is who she knows. Aussie is, you know, has been in her life for the last year and a half. So she's like, well, if I can make it work with Aussie, then I don't have to go back to the single life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like no shade. Like, I think like people were really critical of Aussie in the last drop. And it's like, same. But I think it's like really, really, really clear that Aussie like has a ton of stuff that Aussie needs to deal with. And like, I feel like honestly, this was probably a really important experience for Aussie, that all this stuff came up. Like we really saw like childhood trauma being like discussed and like all this really, really important stuff. And it's just like, I just feel sad that like, it feels like Sam really easily takes on. And I think this is like a common thing for like women and like femmes in any type of relationship to like default to the caretaker role. And like we see that in the way that Sam interacts with Aussie, and even the way that Sam interacts with like Tiff at the reunion. Like I just feel like Sam is one of those people that's just so loving and like wants to like give that support. And yeah, I do feel like she could be starting a relationship from a place where the other person can be giving more back than from what we've seen than Aussie gives. Because like you said, I feel like the biggest issue, one of the big issues with this the editing of the show really focused on the drama, obviously, as it should. But I feel like, yeah, we really never saw what is good about the Sam Aussie relationship, except for like how patient Sam is. You know what I mean? Like what's Aussie bringing that's like keeping Sam there, you know?
And then Aussie just loves how patient Sam is. So
Right.
it's just like, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong also with, like, a lot of times people put their own sort of feelings into other people's relationships when they watch it. Like when I watch Sam and Aussie, I think, oh, Sam, like, go find someone that can let you be, you know, not have to be someone's, be so patient with someone, right? But some people are like, a huge part of them in their relationship is being a you know, supporter of someone else in whatever the way. That could be physical, it could be mental, it could be whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if that Sam is comfortable being in that position, that's fine, as long as Sam is still getting everything that they need out of their relationship and being fulfilled themselves. And I think that that's the thing that I like mostly watch and want to make sure that that's the case. But if it is, then that's okay. And it's okay for Sam to be in that position with Aussie if she's okay with it as well.
Right. I just, I don't know. Maybe we'll see an update. I haven't really, have y'all seen either of them on social media, like TikTok, Instagram?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not specifically.
Yeah, I've seen that they've been
out.
posting stuff about like trauma-informed relationships and things. I think they're really leaning into the kind of like, we're the you know, emotionally competent couple, or like we're the which, like, you know what, sure, you know, like definitely comparatively, like, you know, absolutely. But yeah, I think let's see where that goes, like you know, long term. But yeah, they're definitely still together. Yeah.
Okay, so the next proposal, or the next ultimatum answer decision time is with Vanessa and Xander. And it was very interesting because this reminded me of a TikTok I saw, because Vanessa was like, you taught me how to cook, how to shuffle cards. And, or did Xander say that Vanessa taught? No, yeah, Xander said Vanessa taught her. No, okay, let me get this straight. Xander said that Vanessa taught Xander how to shuffle cards. However, there was a specific scene that showed Vanessa learning how to shuffle cards from Rae during their trial marriage. So people are like, was Vanessa just faking it? Like,
wait, that's so funny.
Yeah, like, how did Vanessa turn around and teach Xander? And is Xander just referencing something that happened during the trial marriage? I just thought that was funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was like specifically pointed out, you taught me how to shuffle cards.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But this was a very, very emotional breakup. There was a part of me that thought that Xander might decide to stay with Vanessa because of their history. But it did, I mean, we saw the constant reassurance with Yoli along the way that may have been the direction Xander was going to go. But man, this is tough to watch.
Yeah, I really wonder. I feel like it's so good the order happened like this, because part of me does wonder what Xander would have done if Xander already knew that Mal and Yoli were engaged, you know, and that wasn't really on the table. But I'm just I honestly feel like this breakup, and like, yeah, I went through a really big breakup this past year. And so this stuff has really like landed intensely for me, the Xander Vanessa stuff in particular. And I just felt like, honestly, it was very like moving and intense, their breakup. Like, that was just like, I feel like one of the realest things I've like ever seen on TV. Like the actual moment of a 4-year couple breaking up. Like at one point, like when Xander starts kind of like sobbing, you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, that's like I feel like that was the moment of them realizing like, oh, fuck, we are like really breaking up on this TV show right now, you know? But yeah, I honestly feel like it was a kind of like nice breakup on both ends. Like, again, like ending a relationship at the right time is so much better than letting it, go into like chaos and bad. And like, obviously not that everything perfect happened here, but like there was a lot of like sweetness towards each other and like gratitude towards each other. And I also did like for Vanessa, her being like, you know, I've been really wanting like to feel that real love from you, but it's been breadcrumbs and like I shouldn't have that. And it's like, that's right, Vanessa. Like you shouldn't be having, like, you shouldn't be just like settling for like, is Xander going to come back to me? Like you should have more, Xander should have more. You both need to go separate ways. And I just think this was like the best decision.
I thought when it even started and you could tell that Vanessa was saying, the tables have completely turned in this relationship. At the beginning, I thought this would come down to me making a decision to accept a proposal or not. And now I feel like Xander is the one with all the power, who's the one who's going to make the final decision. And even though, like, I think there's the way the show sort of wanted to portray it, which was Xander's choosing between Vanessa or Yoli. I don't really think that was the case exactly. I think that if Yoli and Mal had not gotten engaged and Xander and Vanessa break up, I could see that Yoli and Xander would have maybe tried dating. It's not like they're going to propose right there. Or maybe, you know, propose to continue seeing each other. Sure. But that wasn't really the case. It was, I think the main thing that Xander realized in this whole experience was probably, actually, yeah, I'm not getting from Vanessa exactly what I want. And I'm concentrating so much on trying to reach a finish line that I'm not really thinking about exactly who I need to be by my side at that point. And so, yeah, it was, you know, I don't really know if mutual is exactly the right term, but it definitely seems like they both understood why they were breaking up, which is sometimes difficult.
Yeah.
And it was super emotional, like bringing up all of the things that they've done together over the last several years. And that's one of the hardest things about a breakup can be like you were talking about with the showing your work, it's like staying with someone because you've put in the time and effort and you don't want to lose that time. Or those memories.
Yeah. I felt that way, that they both understood why I needed to end, until Vanessa was like, well, I don't understand why you don't want to grow alongside me unless it's to be with someone else.
Yeah. She definitely reverted towards the end of it for sure.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, there was this moment also where she was like, I just like can't believe that that we're not gonna have this future that I wanted for us. And it's like, that you wanted for us since like what, yesterday?
Yeah.
Like
just like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's very true. And yeah, I do really wonder if Xander knew Yoli had already accepted a proposal, what would happen. But it really felt like Xander was choosing themselves, but they kept saying, a large part of this has to do with the fact that I fell in love with someone else. And I don't know if it's just like, because I fell in love with Yoli, or because I was capable of falling in love with someone else, which means that I should not be with Vanessa.
I read it more as the fact that they were, I mean, I think realistically, like logistically, knowing that you have another option out there or another potential person probably does make some of the blow of a breakup a little easier, because you're not immediately thinking you 100% have to be alone. But I think the bigger picture, when it really comes down to it, is if I was able to fall in love with someone else that quickly and feel like I was getting things from another person that I wasn't getting in my current relationship, then probably my relationship is not completely right. And I think much like going to the dating apps, though, you could run into a trap. And I don't think that was the case here, because I think there were issues with Xander and Vanessa's relationship, but you can run into a trap of looking for things that could improve instead of just trying to work on the relationship you have.
But I really did like the way that Xander was like, we just were never on the same page. Like for 4 years, I wanted to get married and she didn't. And now she wants to get married and I don't. And it's just like, we're not on the same page. Like, I think that was like a really good framing. And it's like, yeah, y'all are just, not in a place for each other.
Yeah. And that's the truth. So, And the emotion coming from Xander showed how much like the relationship did mean, how much that Xander does love Vanessa. It's just and I don't know how it, like, if that would be more comforting for Vanessa, knowing like this isn't a heartless breakup. This is I think that we're just not right for each other. So Oh, it was, I mean, even to the point of Xander telling Vanessa that Vanessa was so strong, and that they were crying so hard. It was, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. But
Yeah.
um but I do think that Vanessa grew. I mean, I think we saw that in the reunion.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
think if we had to give most improved player,
Yes.
it'd go to Vanessa, because
Yes.
the way she was the ultimate villain in the first drop,
Yep.
to this arc of just, hey, I just want you to forget about me.
Yeah.
Like, I think
Yeah.
that's growth.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
So this experiment served its purpose for that relationship, which leads us to Yoli and Xander. So Yoli walking up to Xander without her engagement ring was a choice.
This was crazy. This scene was crazy. Like, and I mean, I'm guessing maybe there was some production in it, like, but it's like Yoli seemed so open to Xander in the
Mm-hmm.
part. Like, it wasn't just no ring. It was like, yay, like you look so cute, like hugs, like just and then as Xander like kept going, like and started like, saying, I feel like the pre-speech of like, let's leave together. Yoli's saying like, wow, you really believe in us, like stuff like that, like
Yes, me
really,
too.
yeah, like me too, like I see it for like really, really, really the door seemed quite open for someone who literally that morning said yes to a proposal from Mal.
Yeah. This is a situation where, hey, maybe if you feel like you even need to have this conversation, and like I said, probably partially for the show, like probably the show was determined to get this conversation to happen. You didn't need to force Xander to put their heart out there without being transparent about where you were already at. And also probably did not do a lot of help for your relationship with Mal, with the fact that maybe in your mind you know what you're doing, but Mal's going to watch this someday. And how are you going to explain like how that did or did not affect the immediate aftermath of what happened after this engagement? Like,
The way I was thinking about Mal this
Yes.
entire
Yes.
scene. And
Yes.
it's no knock to Xander. Xander wasn't aware. Xander is in this moment choosing Yoli, thinks Yoli is on the same page. They know that they have like probably that all the couples have met in the morning. So it's fair for Xander to assume Yoli did not accept a proposal. Hands are free of any
Yeah.
rings. And so I can't blame Xander for this at all. I'm just thinking, Yoli, what are you doing at this point? You have
Yeah.
lost the plot.
Yes.
You're not caring whose feelings you're hurting at this point, because quote unquote like trying to choose yourself, but people are just catching strays left and right because you were just carelessly going all in to two people. And I just felt so bad for Mal, because I'm like, even if they are the happiest ever, Mal, like you said, Mary, we'll have to watch this back and see literally the day of the proposal, her fiance looking in Xander's eyes like, I feel confident about us too. Just and as close as ever. Oh, I just felt so bad.
Yes. I mean, honest, it's like there was no outcome where watching this show back, Mal and Yoli could still be like together
Yeah.
married. I just like do like, and it was for me, it's like all the stuff that Yoli was doing with Xander in that moment, but also this like less even about the stuff. And this is kind of, I feel like what Mal was saying throughout. It's like less even about the stuff of like being in love with Xander as the stuff she was saying about like Xander versus Mal. You know what I mean? Like I feel like Mal was perceiving it as like, yes, Yoli fell in love with this other person, has left for this other person, but she's here with me. Like, like we're good, like we're gonna leave together. Yoli is out there saying stuff like I feel like choosing myself would be choosing you, Xander.
Yes.
Like it's like literally like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm not literally, I wrote it down, like, I'm not in love with Mal the way that I'm in love with Xander. Like, on the day you got engaged.
Yes.
Like,
and that's different than clearly what Mal's interpretation of it was. I did fall in love with someone else during this time. I'm a person who falls in love quickly. You know that about me, but I'm picking you, and we can hopefully work past this, like I've broken up with someone. So if things are a little raw, but
Right.
this,
Right.
I've chosen you. And that's not the same as what Yoli is saying.
No. No.
Oh, yeah,
No.
there was literally no outcome. Even if Yoli ended up with Xander, even Xander would see how Yoli was during the proposal with Mal. And Xander would probably feel like a second choice because
Mhm.
at that moment, Yoli was a kind of want to marry you, Mal. And then only after finding out Xander didn't propose, then Yoli's like, oh, okay, gosh. And then it was like a moment she finally realized that she's engaged and had to break the news to Xander. And then my heart broke for Xander, just finding out in the moment, like, you don't think you could have started this conversation with that? Like, why do we get this deep? Why am I getting excited in this moment that like we could potentially walk away? And that moment of just like not being in love with Mal the way she was with Xander was just, I'm like, Yoli.
Yeah, that's horrible. It's horrible. And it sounded like I don't I mean, I don't know exactly the order and when. It seems like they all watched these finale episodes maybe like right before they filmed
Yeah.
the reunion, right?
Or
Like
even the whole season before.
yeah,
Or like
right. Just
watch
like
the whole season, yeah.
just like immediately before, and it's like how that is so much for Mal to process, and like I mean Mal said as much, that is not the story that she was told. And like honestly, I was like pretty high on Yoli throughout this whole thing, but this really, I was just like, this is bad. This is very, very, very disrespectful and painful for both Xander and Mal, and like especially disrespectful to Mal. Like
And some of the language in the reunion around like that Yoli was saying around like almost trying to like win, like saying like really win. When did I lie? When did I say this? When did I? And it's like it's not. You're not necessarily going to catch Mal in like a. This is exactly a sentence you told me that has been factually incorrect. I think what Mal's trying to say is the whole picture of what was happening was being portrayed to me in a different way than what I'm now seeing. I'm hearing you say, "Hey, I need to go talk to Xander at this event." I did not realize that the words you were saying was like, "Oh,
I
I
love
wish we
you.
could be together. Let's hold hands." I thought you were going to get closure. Like that is it's I'm not necessarily going to be able to pull up exact quotes. It's not like that. It's a whole impression that I had that was clearly very different than what the scenario actually was. And that's rough to watch.
And Yoli openly says stuff like, I wanted to like see where you were. I didn't wear the ring because I wanted to see you where you were at with Xander. It's like very clearly trying to like hedge the bets and like honestly let other people make decisions for her. You know what I mean? In some level, it's like and
The
and that's
seer's gonna
also
give her the best option, like who's gonna fight for her the
Yes.
most or something. Yeah.
honestly,
Like that's the way it feels at the very least. I'm not saying that there's like I'm not trying to say that Yoli had like specifically malicious intent of
Right.
like I want to just see everyone fight for me. What I'm saying is the way that it comes across when you say that is clearly, I mean, you said you wanted to not wear the ring to see what Xander's pitch was basically. And like there's not a whole lot of other ways of reading that either. At the best case scenario, it's you are truly undecided and hoping that whatever Xander's going to say is going to give you some clarity in this moment, despite the fact that you've already technically accepted a proposal. Or your other option is at the worst, you're going to change your mind about Mal based on what Xander says, or like you just want to hear it to hear it. Like I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any part of y'all that thought when Yoli chased Xander that Yoli was going to change her mind?
Yes. And well, also, I'm like, at that point, it's like, let alone change your mind. It's like, you just know now, I think that you should break up with Mal. I mean, like, after that, it's like, how can you, with good intention, think like I should be engaged to Mal right now? And I'm not saying like, not just because of the act of like being in love with multiple people. Like, I actually believe they could have worked through that. It's the way that she's talking about how she feels about Mal as like less than and like worse and like not as like authentic to her feelings for Xander. Like that is effed up. Like, yeah.
It's
I'm
really,
glad.
I mean, yes.
I'm glad they didn't just get together then, though. I feel like
Yeah.
that would have been like so chaotic and not necessarily like good.
Yeah, it would have been based in like the drama of how it happened, and Xander deserves better than that. And I thought it was so great that Xander told production, "I think you guys got enough."
Yes. Can you believe the day that Xander had that day? Like that's insane.
Like you've
Two
seen me put
breakups.
my heart out there, and you've seen me like lose 2 people. I mean, it's not that's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And you've got footage of me crying. Okay, I think we're good. I think what more could you possibly be needing from this?
Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah.
It's just like they were just continuing to roll. It's like, come on, Xander, give us a few tears.
But Xander, of course, even in that was such a like that's such a gentle way of doing that. You know,
Yes.
like, I think you guys got enough. Like, you know, there's other versions, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's such a sweetheart.
That was the nicest way to say that, for sure.
Yes.
So just when I thought the credits were gonna roll, I was reminded that there was another couple.
I know. I had the exact same reaction. Like that was clearly the end of the episode. Like,
and it's weird. It's not even like I just completely forgot. Yeah, completely forgot there was another one.
It's like, oh, I guess we don't know what Rae and Lexi decided.
Yeah, and I also feel like that structure was kind of a giveaway because I'm like, oh, I'm guessing they want to end on like a happy note or something. Like that felt pretty, clear to me.
I mean, it could have been a nice segue into the reunion if they left on that, because obviously we would be wondering, you know, how that ended up. But the biggest question, I mean, it wasn't too much of a shock because of their trial marriage that they decided to, you know, get engaged. Why did they both have their purses? Like,
oh, I know. I figured this out.
Okay.
I was thinking that too. I was like, why do they have these purses? It's so like ugly and distracting from the thing. And then I realized it's because they both had engagement ring boxes. And where were they going to put them? I literally wrote that. I wrote 100 times like, why does Lexi have this ugly purse? Like, yeah, but then I figured it out.
Like this nice dress. You come in with a purse. Like, I was like, no one could have held that.
You can't I feel like
they
you could have pre-planted it near the bench.
Yeah, put it behind like the pillows on the couch or something, or the bed.
Yes, there was definitely a different way to do that. But I'm pretty sure that's why they had the purses. I think.
Oh gosh. But yeah, Rae was super nervous. But in true fashion, this goes back to our first podcast of the season where I said Rae and Lexi are always not, so they're just very similar in this relationship. And then true enough, they both proposed to one another, which I've seen it in other relationships where they're not as similar, but did decide to both propose to one another, and it was just really sweet. But this, I was like, this is just on brand for them.
Yeah, I did. Like, as much as I mean, as you all know, have been pretty negative on Lexi throughout this, and like I still feel the same way, to be honest. And so like I wasn't like happy necessarily. I really just feel like it, like, yeah, I feel like this was like Rae was being. I feel my arc on this is that Rae was being a little suffocated in this relationship in a way that like, and made to feel bad about herself and things like that, which I do not like. But I do think I thought this was like a pretty sweet engagement, like comparatively to some of the, like I don't know. I thought Rae said some cute stuff, and I did think it was like sweet that they both proposed, and I think that's also like good. That is especially like, you know, this is like a femme relationship. Like there's not like, you know what I mean? And I just thought that it was nice representation of that, and the double proposal I thought was sweet. And I feel like there was some linger shots on the open ring boxes to show the dad's brand. That's also one of my conspiracy theories. So you gotta have 2 rings, double the branding, you know, double the.
All they were missing was the name of his jewelry store.
Yeah,
I'm so intrigued by the relationship Rae must have with Lexi's father. It's like, hey, Lexi's dad, whatever your name was. Thanks for joining us at lunch the other day, where most of our time spent talking about how I kind of cheated on your daughter. So can we talk rings? Like, it's just such an odd conversation. Yeah, I think in a lot of ways I agree with everything Evvie's said. I've kind of moved away from like feeling like Lexi is the villain so much as just feeling like the the Lexi and Rae thing, like Lexi is I don't think it's wrong for Lexi to want to be with someone and be absolutely sure that there is no potential of cheating on each other. Like, I get that, and I get how the whole situation with Vanessa really became like a massive like blinder for Lexi, like could not look at anything else besides that moment. But we don't know that that's not how Lexi is about a lot of things. Like this could be an occurrence that happens a lot. So kind of rough to watch. This was something I sort of felt like at the point where they got engaged, I thought, okay, well, I guess we also just really weren't shown the clear picture and they, whatever. But I also looked at them and said, they've been together for 3 years. That's another one where it's hard to break up when you've been together for that amount of time.
Yeah.
There were brief moments where things were mentioned throughout about how maybe their life has not been so happy, shiny, perfect relationship where, Lexi mentioned, you never really made me feel like I was able to move in with you. It felt like I was in a different space. And it doesn't sound like a lot of that changed necessarily after the show. So
yeah.
And I do think it came out in the discussion with at some point it came out like that, that Rae had said, I won't hook up with Vanessa specifically had said that, which did obviously change our understanding of like the level of betrayal there. But I do feel like, so I also totally agree. It's like content wise, like, yeah, I do understand why Lexi was upset. I think it was mostly like the way that she like expressed that and like the way that it just felt like there was I feel like Lexi very much is like, this is how I feel. And that is the dominant thing. And it like, doesn't matter what you're saying. And I'm not going to listen to your side of it or like have an ability to take that in. So like that feels like that's a dynamic that would apply to like any sort of conflict that they're having. And I think that felt like the hard part. Not necessarily that I totally agree that like, yeah, if your partner says I'm not going to hook up with this person and then they do, like that sucks. And that is
right. That can be hurtful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think it's like figuratively, Rae couldn't breathe in this relationship, but I thought it was also apparent. It's like physically, Rae could not breathe in this relationship because just how nervous she was and had to pull herself together to get through to the proposal. It's like, this is just very representative of their relationship. But yeah, they're moving to Philly. Exciting.
Yeah, I did think there was one. I really thought it was cute. I feel like that we like see only like bursts of Rae's personality throughout this because I feel like she was like really nervous on camera and things like that. But like when she was like, they had like she was kind of like, I choose you, and then like right before she proposed, she was like, so I was kind of wondering, and did this like really cute like shoulder thing, and then there was like a music drop, and I was just like, that's cute. Like I went back and watched that a few times. I was like, that was cool. All right, Rae. Like that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, I think Rae has a personality that we just are not aware of because, like I told you, she is the one I see the most on TikTok, and she has a lot of TikToks out there, especially being back into the single life and what what that's like, which is kind of funny. And so, yes, that was the finale. So we get into the reunion, which is a year later. And I'm glad about that because I'm glad some time has passed. I'm glad we're able to get real updates. So they just, they're seated with the ultimatum receivers and the ultimatum givers. What did y'all think about that?
Yeah, I felt it was quite awkward. I mean, they kind of had to do that, I guess, because like everybody was secretly broken up, so they like couldn't reveal that. But it was awkward, especially for the couples that were together still at the time of filming. Like, I thought it was weird to like maybe once it was revealed they could go sit together, kind of like how in I feel like there was one Love Is Blind where then the couple was like Raven and SK, then they were together and then they kind of moved seats. Like I feel like they should have done one of those,
Yeah. Shout out to Raven, who is in a very happy relationship. I just listened to a podcast.
That's great.
I think it's the Lovers and Friends podcast, and she's talking about how she got to this relationship. So we start out with Rae and Lexi, who are surprisingly still together. It's been the best year of their life. They've moved back and forth across the country.
Has it been the best year of their life?
Right.
I'm so confused.
I'm so confused.
And just to say, I talked to some people who watched this reunion and did not see the final title card. So like,
wow, yes.
How
yes.
did you miss? Okay, the first thing while I started the reunion, about 5 minutes into the reunion, I moved my cursor down to the end to see if there was like where you can see the little box at the bottom, you know, as it tracks to like look at the scenes, to see if the end would show, you know, like a documentary does, the black title card with the text on it, or like an after the credit sequence or anything. I was looking for that because I was like, there's no way that this is the status of these couples still.
Mary, you're a genius. Like,
I was like, I don't want to spoil myself on who it is, but I just want to verify that we're going to get some like, few months later update, because these shows are notorious for that, for telling us one thing, and even if they were filmed relatively recently, I'm not doing SK and Raven again. Like,
that was an emotional roller coaster. Yeah. But you're genius, because I was shocked.
Yeah,
that we had a title card, because I was like, oh, they did this a year later. Like, we are caught up. Like, there's no more that we should know. But
okay, yeah. And so just to say, so people who if you missed it. Yeah. Lexi and Rae, it said at the end, broke up soon after filming, which also makes everything that they said in that feel honestly invalid. Extremely fake.
Yeah.
Really fake. Yeah.
So it said Lexi and Rae are no longer together. The wedding has been called off.
Yes.
Well,
but
yes.
Do you want to explain this, Aysha?
Yeah, let me fill in any gaps if I miss anything. So there was a TikTok where someone who was visually impaired had there's extra audio that you can have that's descriptive and can explain what's happening on the screen. So they caught this at the end, and they were like, no, I caught something that no one else caught, and I bet you no one else knows this. And I was like, oh yeah, what could it be? Well, what it was when the title card went up that said Lexi and Rae are no longer together, the wedding has been called off, the descriptive audio did not read that. The descriptive audio said, shortly after the reunion, Lexi suspected Rae was cheating on her. The wedding has been called off.
Like, what?
Yes.
Who is in charge of doing that audio, and what extra tea did they have? How did they get a different script? Do I need to go back and rewatch all the episodes with different audio? Because I love that.
Is that amazing? Okay, my assumption is that what happened was an earlier draft or something that it said that, and then they decided to change what the writing was, but forgot to update the audio description, right? Which like is so interesting.
Because they probably did some investigation and either found that is not the case, or like legally for whatever, like Rae would be like, no, I'm going to sue you if you like say that without any factual evidence. You can't just like have the last thing about me be like some slander about me cheating. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so like Lexi, obviously, that was what she wanted the version to be. And then Rae, like Rae got in there and like, hell no, you can't just like write that as like the reason.
Right.
And so then I also, Netflix, I saw had a video, a reel on Instagram we had quick interviews with Rae and Lexi about like why they broke up after. And their story there is also completely different from one another.
Different.
Like, Rae says that after the show, Lexi's lifestyle changed, and that was like the reason, and that they like sat down mutually and decided to that they shouldn't get married anymore. Whereas Lexi was like still saying like stuff about the trial, like things that happened in the trial marriage and like why that happened, and like quote unquote we couldn't get over it, which feels like still related. So it's like still this like Vanessa thing like 2 years later or whatever. Gosh. Which is just like wild that then they sat there on those couches being like so happy, like like it's the best year ever.
But I mean, and I know that it's like just Rae's personality. I need to watch some of Rae's TikToks so that I can like see Rae not
she's kind of
on
funny.
a TV show, because I felt like everything was like so Lexi and Rae, how's it going? And then Lexi would be like, oh, it's going so great, best year ever. Pan to Rae. Rae, how do you feel about that? And Rae would be like, yeah, best year ever. Like it felt like Rae was like looking to Lexi for permission to like figure out what the story was. Like that's my read of like hyper analyzing it, but it also kind of felt like Rae was kind of like that the whole season. And I think that it's probably more to do with Rae's discomfort on camera. But I was like, what hostage situation do we have going on right now?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, well, and definitely because I mean, I especially thinking about it. So I watched it once, not knowing, and then watched it back, and like I do feel like also like, yeah, the whole narrative of like Rae is this person who like can't make a decision and like is an overthinker. It's like, is that true, or is it that Rae has real concerns that like she like is convincing herself out of? You know what I mean?
Or maybe
like,
just doesn't want to bring up on TV. Like I think
Right.
maybe Rae just doesn't want to, say negative things about Lexi on TV. And also probably like they're young. Like Rae doesn't need to make a decision about this right now. I don't know.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. That was I mean, because even to the point that Rae had that Lexi's lifestyle change. I'm like, y'all were together for a year. What changed about her lifestyle so much after the reunion?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I want so much more info on this aftermath. Like, we need the reunion from the reunion, you know?
Yeah.
And so, that is just to say I think that is the one thing that sucks with the Netflix reunions is that you don't get them you get now, at least they've watched it, which some of the services they haven't, but they haven't also experienced the fans watching it and that content. And like, I do think that really changes. And that's like the thing you like most want people to be able to address is like also like how everyone perceived it and like kind of correct their side. I don't know. We need updates throughout maybe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I guess Mary, to give you some context for Rae, one TikTok she did was like she was impersonating production the first day of filming, and it was the Petey Pablo song Freak a Leak, where it's like where he's like naming these names like Shamika, Keisha, and so it's like she was acting as if she was reading the names off. And that's how they were trying to remember all the people's names that were on the show. And so that happened like maybe a week or two ago. Someone from production stitched it and was like, yeah, you're right, Rae. And like held up the card that had all of their faces and their names. They're like, we had to use this like the first few days just to keep everyone straight.
That's funny.
There's only 10 people. Like, come on. Yeah.
Exactly. You'd think you'd have the cast down.
I saw a great Instagram post from Rae that was something to the effect of like, pretty hilarious that we all did this instead of going to therapy, but it was like pretty important. Okay, now off to therapy. Like, and I was like, that's great. You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Apparently, Rae is also a very impressive D1 basketball player, or she was when she was in college. There's been some clips, some highlights going around of Rae's basketball skill, and she's really good.
I buy it.
Well, I'm still leaving the show feeling pretty good about Rae. So
yeah. I mean, we do also find out that Lexi still has a good relationship with Mal.
Seems like both Lexi and Rae did. Yeah, Mal was friends with them. It was kind of hard to tell exactly where all the lines were drawn, but just based on some facial expressions to things, it's kind of clear where certain pockets of the cast have formed together. And I would say that seemed to be one.
Yes, exactly. So anything else on Rae and Lexi from the reunion?
Lexi, Vanessa's still living rent-free in Lexi's mind, even at this point. And we kind of already talked about Vanessa a little, but like I just appreciate Vanessa being like, look, I've stayed out of your life, haven't I? Like I've done everything. Like I feel bad that I made such a bad impression on everyone, but this is how it is. I do feel like I don't know if we're missing something that Vanessa did additionally to Lexi that made Lexi so mad, or if it was just everything we saw, but still pretty crazy that that's like part of the story still.
I feel the root of it is that Lexi is mad that she was actually interested in Vanessa at first.
Yes.
And so she feels like she got tricked or something because she figured Vanessa out, and she figured out the type of person Vanessa is. But she's also mad that at one point she was seriously considering going through the trial marriage of Vanessa. And so it's all of that, and then it just fueled this hatred that she has for Vanessa. It's just like, I just love Vanessa saying, like, I would love for you to just forget me.
Yeah.
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 It's just
Yeah.
simple.
I also did first of all, I cannot believe that the host said the phrase fingergate out loud. That was horrifying to hear. And I kind of like that I liked that Lexi knew she needed to apologize about the way that she was talking about that. I found the explanation I mean, it's like, yeah, it's really true. Queer sex is like not as like quote unquote like straightforward as straight sex, let's say. I mean, whatever. I think all sex is more complicated than, the simple like X goes into Y. And so like sure, like people might mean different things about sex. I don't think that makes sense as an explanation for like the vibe of how Lexi was talking about it, which was very just like gross. You know what I mean? Like, you were inside my partner. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, it's not like, let me just clarify. Like, was that like, it's like, just say you were really upset. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why it was like that. Like, you were really upset.
And because also it doesn't matter what the label on the thing is. It's what are you or are you not okay with a particular action? And that goes for any type of relationship. And that action could be kissing. That action could be anything. So just like trying to make it be a difference between whether or not it was sex or wasn't, like that doesn't really matter. It's just whether or not you were okay with the interaction.
Right. And it's like, you got it. Like you knew what physically happened. That's very clear. And you were being gross about it, like the way that you're talking about it. Yeah. But she did I do appreciate that she knew like right away to apologize. So
yes. Oh goodness. Yeah, that was to have to hear it again. It was just like, oh gosh, she did go there.
Yeah.
So next we go into Xander and Vanessa, which is their first time seeing each other since the breakup. And it's just like, it felt so raw, and I'm glad they kept in just like the pauses, like a moment to breathe, because it very much so was Vanessa still very heartbroken, and Xander is in a different place in their life, in terms of where they were when they were in a relationship with Vanessa. But kind of Vanessa is still in that time frame, or like it's still very present for Vanessa, where I think in the way that Xander approached this, it was very clear that they've moved on, but it's still like, oh, this is my ex who meant so much to me. How did you feel about this interaction, Evvie?
Yeah, I mean, I do think though that I think for both of them, you can see that the time has gone by. Like, I think I really liked that Vanessa was able to like say, I wasn't giving you like 100% love, and like you deserve that. And I think it was, I think Vanessa was extremely like emotional and like felt very sad still, but I think there was like a lot more, like I just feel like they both like had a pretty like good understanding, and like a mutual understanding, which I thought, again, this was I cried during this part. I thought this was like really emotional and real, and like just like I feel like, when you have a hard breakup, like I feel like the dream is to get to a point where you both are like aligned on what happened, and like can be like, yeah, we like loved each other and like had this like beautiful growth together and like relationship together, and like we broke up for these reasons, and that's right, and we're not going to get back together. And I honestly do feel like they had that, and like we're in some level on the same page, and like I don't know, I thought it was really sweet, and really real. And I feel like we really saw like such realness from Vanessa, like again, as you said before, like from the person who started as like perceived as like really fake and like not willing to like go there. I feel like Vanessa really did like really like was extremely vulnerable during the reunion, and I liked that stuff a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I mean, it was very maybe pure, I don't know. I like the space that they're in and the fact that they opened up the door for the potential of like being back in each other's lives in a as friends, because I think that's what's most appropriate. That's what they were in the first place. Like even before they were in a relationship, they were good friends. And so it's kind of like how Mal presented it. Like at this point, when you reach that length in a relationship, you're family. And so you just kind of figure out, sometimes some family is not in your life. Sometimes family is, and you may not like them all the time, and you may like them sometimes, So I feel like that's an appropriate level. And I truly do hope that they find what works for them, because I don't think completely out of each other's life is what either one of them is comfortable with.
That's a tricky line for me, just because I feel like with them, they are the people who it's the most realistic was what I was going to say, but it's like they're the couple who we at least did not see very, very specific and many, many instances where we're like, yeah, they're not compatible. Like with them, it seemed a lot more like, okay, we're not sure if Vanessa isn't sure if Vanessa wants marriage and wants to be in a monogamous relationship. With Xander, seems like Xander might be compromising some of the things that they want to be with Vanessa because they like Vanessa, but maybe they're not getting the fulfillment they need out of that type of relationship. Other than, and those are like big deals and those are fundamental things, but it's not like we were saying like, wow, they cannot communicate, or wow, they've got this toxic behavior, or wow, they're, arguing all the time or whatever. It didn't really feel like it was like a quote unquote like bad or a non-compatible relationship. Therefore, it makes the relation or the breakup feel in a lot of ways more sad or more real, because you're like, but maybe they could have made it work, or maybe, they've been together for so long, they've been friends, and if it's not right, it seems like they recognize the reasons why they broke up, but also, and I think that is almost why I would recommend for them, like if I was a friend of theirs, that if you truly feel like you don't want to be in a relationship, maybe don't be close friends, because it's so easy to say, wow, look at us, we're friends again, we're doing so well, let's just get back in that relationship. And if things work out, that's fine, but sometimes you need that clean break to kind of, if it's wrong, then don't tempt yourself. And I feel like that's maybe that's like not exactly the scenario. I know that some people can remain friends with their exes and stuff, but how many people remain friends with their exes where both parties are 100% okay with just being friends? If that is the case, good on them. But if it's not the case, I just don't want it to be a scenario where one of them thinks that it could be something more than the other one could be. It makes me sad for the situation, because you want people to work it out, especially with them. They were the people who were together the longest, and not only that, but knew each other for the longest.
Yeah. I think it's hard. I mean, like, I think like it seemed like the biggest thing is like they weren't being like real and good versions of each other together. Like, and I think you hear Xander talk a lot about, they were realizing how much they didn't have that like self-love and like weren't like putting forth like what they want into the world and things like that. So I do feel like a lot of individual growth seems to have happened for both of them in this time period. So like, I think it seems like very clear that they're both clear, or especially that Xander is really clear that like the version of Xander now isn't going to like want to be in that anything like the dynamic that existed with Vanessa. I do hear you though, that I think like, even if it's not like necessarily, oh, is someone going to want this to be romantic? It could also even slip into like, even if it's not explicitly romantic, like, does Xander slip into the role of like emotional security for Vanessa? Or like, you know what I mean? Even like in a quote unquote friend way, like you can like slip into some of these like harmful dynamics, And so like, I do hear that concern of like, it might not be a good thing, even though it's like they grew up together. Like I definitely get it,
Because this could be the case with just friends. Like, do you need this person in your life? Do you need them in your life because, or do you want them in your life because you've been friends before and it's been comfortable and you miss that person? Or do you want them in your life because they're actually a positive thing in your life for where you want your life to be going right now? And those are different things sometimes.
Yeah. And the only reason I do feel that it could work out in their case is because they haven't talked for a year. They've gone through a lot individually in the past year, and enough to where I think they both would be content not exploring romantically. And it, I mean, Vanessa was using a lot of language of like, as a friend, or, I care about you as a friend. And we know that Xander, I mean, even trying to revisit, not, I don't know what the situation was there with Yoli and Coachella, but I don't think that Xander is currently, or at the time of this reunion, thinking of a potential romantic relationship with Vanessa. And it does feel like Vanessa at this point, even though at the finale, or during the ultimatum decision. Yeah, decision day. I've been trying to avoid decision day at all costs because that's what they call it on Married at First Sight.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah, even on decision day, Vanessa was saying, well, I don't understand, right? But I feel like a year later, Vanessa understands.
Yeah.
So they could try to make it work. I don't know.
And I do think, and like, I think just in terms of the like, yeah, it can be so complicated to be friends with an ex, and it can often be damaging. And I also do feel like, yeah, there are some relationships where it's just like this person is family, or like really did like shape you in such a big way, and there's just so much like shared only with them. And I feel like, especially like all this stuff, like it was their first queer relationship and they like came out and then like soon we're dating, and it's just like I can just really relate with that. Like, there's just is not like being totally not in touch with that person means like losing a lot of like core memories that, and like core stuff that you're just like don't want to lose. But
yeah,
it's tricky.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I mean, that was pretty much the gist of Vanessa and Xander. So they go into Mal and Yoli, who are happily broken up. I think this was the least surprised I was between across these two episodes. It's like, I'm surprised they even, I guess, a month and a half of being separated before they were like really over, which is like, of course.
I mean, if they weren't going into the reunion, or I think like immediately upon watching the finale episode, they would have broken up. So
yeah,
I'm glad for them that it happened earlier.
Yes. And so we see this trend of Mal saying that Yoli is being dishonest, right? The like Yoli saying they broke up 2 weeks after. Yoli DMing Mal 2 weeks into, or in the middle of the trial marriage with Xander, saying you don't have to worry about Xander, when clearly Mal had to worry about Xander. And then even the trip to Hawaii or whatever that Yoli couldn't remember that her and Xander talked about.
And we, by the way, heard them on camera talking about Hawaii like several times. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
I think what Yoli is missing here is that Yoli isn't thinking when she was saying these things, when it would have been disrespectful to Mal, she's not seeing it as being disrespectful. And I think that's the biggest issue. And that's why she can't remember these things, because it's not even like she's intentionally trying to forget. I think even with the selfie that she asked for during the selfie marriage, the trial marriage, I think Yoli didn't even see it as like a big deal. And that's the big deal, because she should have more care and concern for how her actions will affect Mal, and that when they were in the relationship. And so I don't even think she's intentionally like, okay, yes, I did change my tune on Yoli. I was all for Yoli before this, but then I just think she's gotten too lost in the sauce. And I'm like, Yoli, you're doing too much. But I also don't think she is being intentionally malicious, like some people I think have had that opinion that she's the true villain now. She's the one doing all of this stuff intentionally. I think that she was overestimating her feelings for Mal in terms of like, hey, this is an ultimatum I'm giving you, we should get married or whatever. And then having the capacity to have this love for Xander. I think the bigger deal and the thing that she needs to take accountability for is that she just wasn't where she thought she was with Mal, and therefore kept doing all these disrespectful things. And they're a big deal to Mal because Mal cared a lot, but they're not a big deal to Yoli because she's just like, oh, well, I forgot about that because blah, blah, blah. I don't know if my point is getting across.
I think it is. I think some of it is also like Yoli has taken the phrase action speaks louder than words like a little too far, to where it's like like with the Hawaii thing, like, what? We didn't plan a trip to Hawaii. It's like, okay, you might not have actually gone on a trip to Hawaii. You might not have actually bought the tickets, but you discussed it. It was out there. And I wonder if maybe if like either Yoli thinks, well, just talking about it doesn't matter if we didn't actually do it, or if Yoli truly, in the moments when they were talking about Hawaii, it was just sort of a fantasy for Yoli and wasn't actually going to act on it. We don't know. Like, it could be either. And I think I agree with you, Aysha. Like, I don't think Yoli has like hard turned into this like massive villain. I think it just shows us that some of the personality traits that Mal mentioned about Yoli being very like enthralled with the process of falling in love with someone and like that kind of thing, and forming these attachments quickly. Sometimes, I'm sure we've all known people like this, people who seem to always be in a relationship, who get out of one, immediately go into another, like people who have a very easy time falling in love with someone, who enjoy getting to know and finding that those things out about certain people. Like, it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that they it could definitely, it can affect the relationship they have with other people if that's overlapping. Like, that makes sense. So I do think there was a lot of the arguments that we saw. You're going to pick a side based on how you would handle a thing. So like, we weren't there to see every word that Yoli and Mal were saying. We can't be that third party who gets the entire full picture. So everything is probably colored slightly with each of their own, biases and opinions. But like, I'm sure for both of them, they feel like they are sort of putting themselves in a slightly better light than was actually the case. But like, it's a clearly another example of a relationship that probably the correct outcome is the breakup.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, and I do think it's like, I agree that Yoli, it was not like trying to be malicious, or like, I think Yoli really did like have like really care about Mal and Xander. However, I also think Yoli was fairly calculatingly trying to keep her options open, at all times.
true.
Like, and I think sending Mal a DM being like, don't even worry about it. And like, maybe her feelings like changed throughout it, but it's like, if you sent that, you could send another one being like, hey, actually, maybe we do need to talk. And
Yeah.
like, we saw Yoli in the cocktail party scene, like, and then it's like, when Mal brings that up, Yoli's like, oh, I had no idea that we held hands so long. And it's like, okay, but you were saying stuff to Xander of like, are we in the eye line? Like, and it's like that, you know what I mean? Like, she obviously knew that she was doing some like stuff that wasn't okay. Like, when she's like, I'm going to go talk to Mildred, and goes right over to Xander, like, she knows what she's doing. And I don't think that makes her like a bad person, or like, but I do think some of these actions were intentionally semi-deceptive to leave the options open. I mean, same as what we said about the way when she met up with Xander after the proposal, like, she was explicitly trying to keep those options open. And therefore, I think it makes total sense that the thing that Mal is upset about, and I really do believe this, is not the explicit, you had feelings for Xander. It's the way that Yoli was, I think, several times quite disrespectful to Mal and the relationship. And this is, again, on TV for all their real friends and real family to see that Yoli, I totally get why Mal is saying stuff of like, I'm pissed as like, we're friends. Like, like, that is embarrassing. Like, and I really, 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 really understand why Mal is so hurt by all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you can even tell that with the way that Mal communicates, Mal is someone who values communication, just period. Mal tries to effectively communicate everything that she is feeling and how she is feeling about a certain thing. And I think that if that was reciprocated from Yoli, I don't think they would have reached this point. Like, okay, even if they did it together, I think it would have been challenging, but at least it would have been out there on the table. I think the dishonesty or the lack of information and having to see it right before this reunion, like, I'm sure that sparked up fresh feelings, because I bet Mal has moved on romantically from Yoli at this point. A year later, it sounds like Mal has been, because it was Lexi who said, I like the way that you're dating Mal, like, it's improved. And Mal, it's even said that she's had some great dating experiences since Yoli. So I think even if I don't know why and Yoli knows Mal so well. I don't know why Yoli just felt like she could. I mean, she'd already said she was in love with Xander. Why couldn't she just give her that honesty along the way? I don't know.
Yeah, totally. And I think like it's like, to be fair to Yoli, like it is really intense that she told Mal, I'm in love with Xander. That like sitting in front of their friend, she's like,
Yes.
well, I fell in love with Xander. And like that is, I'm sure that felt like so much honesty, but it just still wasn't the full story. And there still were these like shady moments. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's a tough as hell situation, but you're on TV. Like, it's gonna come out what actually happened. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Looking at you, Aussie, also about telling the family. Like, you guys know you're on Netflix. This isn't like
Yeah.
a YouTube series. Like
Yeah, because even Lexi, I think, recently did a TikTok where she was saying, like, you guys got to remember, you're only seeing 45 minutes in 10 little bite-sized episodes, and there's like 30,000 hours of footage. I don't know how accurate that number is, but I still feel like you can't bank on something not being shown.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess Ozzy's parents' family don't watch Netflix. Like, I have no idea how this is.
Yeah, it's like probably they don't, but like they don't know anybody
Yeah,
that
who
is gonna
does?
tell them. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that, I mean, wow. Like,
Yeah. It's out there.
it is out there.
So we haven't really talked about the host yet, but
Yes.
okay, we know it's
Because
like,
there's nothing to say because they don't add anything. Oh my gosh, just awkward comments.
the only
It's
thing
like,
in this
look,
section.
I get to be on this podcast, but I should not be the host of the show.
The only thing she said in the section was, with Yoli and Xander giving it a shot, and Vanessa's like, "Well, they did try," and then the host, she goes, "Well, I'd love to hear about that."
Okay, my hot take is that I actually really liked Joanna in this reunion, because I agree, she did not add anything, but she also did not take anything away, and therefore just left space. With some, okay, wait.
One moment. One moment that I will point out, and this is not actually like a big moment. This was the one like random one that I wrote down, was the like, oh, are you married yet? Well, I'm ordained. Like, who is this? Jeff Probst? Like, get out. Like, no, you don't. It's not the job of the host to like expedite the like wedding or kids process. Like, why is that? That's like this like word vomit that hosts of dating shows feel like they need to say. It's
okay,
like, trust me. If
but
you say it, if there is news, if they say, man, we've just really wanting to get married, but we just can't find someone who's ordained to do it. Okay, then you can say it. But don't throw it out there. It's like, it was a funny joke the first time one person did it. It's not funny anymore. Stop. I don't like it.
Okay, I agree. But I would take her over the Lachey's at a reunion. Like, the Lachey's just add so much of their own. You spend so much time like on a tangent because of like what Vanessa said, or like them talking about their stuff. Joanna just mostly got out of the way and let the people talk about the stuff we wanted to hear about. And I appreciate, again, it could have been the too hot to handle robot. Like, it doesn't like that's the level. The distraction. I don't know. Mostly.
Yeah, I mean, leave it to you, Evvie, to change my mind on something on this podcast. You're so right, though. I cannot, just how much the Lachey's take away from the reunion because they are just trying to insert themselves in every way possible. So this was great because Joanna was just a fly on the wall. Literally. She was just like, just reacting. Oh yeah, what about that? you know?
Like, oh. Yeah, but I will say, I mean, like it was interesting though when she came, like when they were talking about like wedding planning. Like, I feel like we finally saw her personality of like, oh yeah, I didn't plan my wedding either. Like, I just want to show up, and I'm like, oh, that's what it's like when you're like excited about stuff, and So clearly, like, you have been really nervous this whole time and uncomfortable. And why are you the host? But I still, give me her over the shiz.
Yes, any day. But so okay, so I guess to close out, like Mal, Yoli, so we did hear that Yoli and Xander saw each other at Coachella. Nothing really came of it. Did y'all get the vibe? Because I got the vibe that more may have happened, but they just agreed not to talk about it because why would they at this point?
I 100% feel like we did not get the full story of the Xander Yoli post, whether it's like Coachella specifically or like just like conversations that they had. Like, we never even got the answer. Like, why did you not try? What, like how, why did you not try? And it was just the most we got was Xander being like, we were like connected at one point and now we're like doing our own thing. And it's like, yeah, no, we know that, but why? Like, like, how did that come to be? Like,
yeah.
Probably because they're not also actually compatible. They just like were having fun on the show. I don't know. Like, it also really seems to me like Xander was saying, and potentially because of I could believe the timeline potentially went something like this. After the show, relatively soon after, Xander and Yoli reconnect. They're talking. Not exactly sure what the overlap timeline with Mal is in that, but eventually they meet up at Coachella. Is that during the time when Yoli and Mal are still trying to make it work, or very shortly after? Maybe part of that influenced the fact why they weren't really 100% able to like concentrate on like actually trying themselves. And then partially after that, Xander realizes, actually, maybe I need to spend some more time on myself and concentrating on figuring out what I want before I try to jump into another relationship. Probably also factors in.
Yeah. I mean, because even after a 4-year relationship, I mean, it's good to take some time away, like to just figure out yourself. And Mal said that they never stopped talking. So I think it was good on Xander to realize, let me not just go directly into a relationship with Yoli at this moment. So,
if
I
that's what
think,
happened.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there was that heartfelt moment also with Yoli crying about like wanting to be a parent, and how she had envisioned that with Mal, and now she's having to rethink like what does that look like for her moving forward. And so that was a tough moment too.
Yeah, that was sad. And I really appreciate though. I feel like so much of this show and like the whole concept is like really like, let's lock it down, marriage, kids, whatever. And I do really appreciate that she was like, it's much more important to me to like figure out like a good relationship, and then I'll like figure out how I'll be a mother like after, even though it clearly was like really upsetting for her. So I felt sad in that. But
yeah, because I mean, with all of Yoli's wrongdoings in this relationship, I still want the best for all 10 of them. And so I thought it was really awkward after this that Joanna segued into puppy love when we hadn't gone through all of the couples. So for her to be shocked when things changed with Mildred and Tiff after talking about Shiloh, I was like, why are you surprised? Is Joanna briefed on the real update on these couples before? Because I was very confused. Why puppy love? This felt like a last 5 minutes of the reunion type of segment.
Yes, definitely, or attention breaking. Yeah.
And
You would think
I
was
would
it that
love
they
it.
knew how the transition was going to work? Because it transitioned right into the next thing.
Yeah, that's true. So I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, let's get into it. And there has been some dialogue about this, how this segment with Mildred and Tiff was very could have been triggering for people. So we do want to go ahead and say, if anything, we do want to shout out the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The number is 800-799-7233. It's available 24/7. If anyone needs access to this, especially after we discuss what has happened with, or what transpired with Mildred and Tiff during their section.
And also, if you personally do not want to hear a conversation that involves abusive relationships and domestic violence and gaslighting, then probably skip this section.
Yes. So yeah, this okay, Mildred and Tiff, because at this point we haven't heard anything from either one. So I actually wasn't even sure where they were. You know, I wasn't sure the status, or I wasn't sure where they were in their relationship. Am I surprised they're not together? Absolutely not.
No.
But I didn't know it was to this level. It could have been a
Mhm.
very amicable, we realized we were not for each other. But no, the absolute worst has transpired with them being together. Starting with Mildred accusing Tiff of lying about Shiloh being in the hospital. And this whole thing is just who said what,
Yeah.
and no actual receipts of what is the truth.
Yeah. And it really felt, I mean, Mildred came in with a plan to
Yes.
tear Tiff down, right? I mean, literally, as you said, we saw a cute thing about dogs. Tiff said, yeah, my dog, who I clearly love so much, had emergency surgery. And Mildred jumps. I actually, when she first said, when did Shiloh have surgery? I was almost like, oh, maybe like, they broke up and she doesn't know that. And she's like worried about the dog. And then it's
I
like,
did
right,
too.
right?
I
Yeah. I
literally
thought it was like
that
maybe
too.
about to be nice. And then it jumped straight into like, because I want to have my facts straight. And it's like, whoa. And that was, I mean, Mildred came in to tear Tiff down, throwing out all this stuff about finances and Tiff's like relationship with Mildred's child, and like the way that maybe Tiff talked about that, and like to the point of, I asked you to get a job, and Tiff's like, I have a job. Like, just like was like really, really, honestly, really hard to watch, I would say.
It felt like, yes, I do feel like it felt very targeted in terms of, I'm going to use everything I can in order to try to just break you down, and also not give you a moment to respond. We got so little from Tiff in response because Mildred was just trying to, okay, if this didn't stick, okay, I'm moving to the next thing. This didn't stick, I'm moving to the next thing. Because when she brought up the rent being split 3 ways, that Tiff even tried to explain, it was like, well, I'm naive, and I just was questioning this because and we didn't even get the full explanation, because then Mildred moved on to something else about her being a mom. And then it's just like, it was one thing after another. And it actually felt so just, once the section was over, I felt like, oh my gosh, okay, I can finally breathe. That was so tense, back to back to back. And then the biggest bomb that was dropped was Mildred explaining that she was arrested because she threw a picture frame, glass shattered everywhere, and also threw a heavy pet gate at Tiff.
Yeah.
There's a lot odd with this whole segment. First off, none of it was productive. It wasn't, hey, we had one fight about one particular thing. Let's sit down and try and talk through, hear your side, hear my side, get some deliberation going on exactly what the thing was. Like, let's pretend it was just about the splitting rent 3 ways. You could have a conversation, hear both their sides, hear how that could have caused tension, etc. But it wasn't. It seems like, I mean, to kind of no one's surprise, they have a lot of issues with, their relationship and communicating and how they speak to each other and treat each other, etc. We don't know whether or not there has always been an element of violence to their arguments, or if this is a new thing. I thought it was odd that not only was there no warning or notice for the audience about this, I thought it was odd in general to say, we're going to bring up an arrest and not have anyone else there comment on it, or like, there are circumstances where I could believe that Mildred wouldn't even be allowed on the show or be brought there because of this. And then also to give Mildred the like ability to just sort of spout all of her issues with Tiff without the ability for Tiff to rebut them. Or like, this is the kind of moment where I 100% agree with the host not chiming in to make things about themselves. This is a moment where we could have used a little bit of production interference or some host interference of saying, you know what, actually, this isn't going to be just a one-way tirade, or even both of them back and forth, because even the responses, like, yeah, Tiff didn't get as much chance to speak, but even the response, it's not productive. There's no, you're not going to win an argument about something you're already broken up. If you have things where you still feel the need to talk about these things, or for legal reasons get your facts straight, that is a different forum than what is happening here. We couldn't get along. We had violent arguments. We are not together. The end. That should be the end of the story with them. And I just thought it was very weird how the show was handling it, of like, it just almost felt like Mildred was saying, yeah, and our arguments got so bad that I had to get violent, and I was even arrested, and that's when I knew it was over. It's like, no, it was over because you got violent. I mean, it probably should have been over before that point, but like, the spin was the way that Mildred, I've never heard someone who felt the need to be violent like say it as if that was like
justified.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. And again, like, there are times where you need to use violence in self-defense, you know, like, that is a different scenario. That does not appear to be what we're talking about here. So I 100% recognize that we don't know the whole picture. I 100% recognize that. It was just very odd how it was spoken about and handled and discussed on this reunion.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And like, I definitely like, and whether it's like the host specifically, but I think it's also just like the entire production, right?
Yeah.
As you're saying, like, it should not have been happening in this forum like this at all. Like, once they know, which they obviously would know, that there was like a police incident, you know, related to intimate partner violence, the show has to know that information. And if not, this is not a live reunion. They can redo, you know what I mean? Like,
or even if they wanted to act like it was, why did we not have anyone else chime in and go, whoa, Mildred, you recognize that's not okay to get violent, right? Like, no one said anything like that. It didn't seem like anyone was shocked. Maybe they were told, don't talk it. I don't know. But it was so
no, this conversation handled. If it was going to happen, if you are going to have both people there, which I agree, like, was a question mark when you know that there's this level of violence and like, you know, abuse in the relationship, like, that should be a highly controlled conversation, you know, that's dealt with seriously. And like, I agree. Like, what did you think was going to happen when you put this like puppy scene? That's the first time we get anything with Mildred and Tiff. It's obviously going to go to Mildred and Tiff after, and you're going to enter that via puppy. Like, seriously, like, and like, that seemed like a whole production miss. Like, you know, like, I don't think that's, and even if like, certainly we can blame the host also, but it's like, they know their host. Like, she's not she is not the kind of person that is gonna have the ability to be like, hold up, Mildred, let's stop down here and like really talk about this. And you know what I mean? Like, you can't just let that flow and expect.
And I'm not trying to blame the host. I was trying to say this would normally, I'm more hands off for the host, but this would be a time where someone, whether it's the host or production, should have stepped in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It should not
and it was
happen
just
like this.
And I wonder if it's just because they weren't anticipating Mildred throwing everything possible at the wall.
Maybe.
To even resort to after the breakup. Tiff was on a dating app. Tiff had women over, and Tiff's like, we were broken up. And she's like, but I was still paying rent.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, what are we, like, roommates can't have people over? I'm sorry. Like, it was way too much. And then for Yoli to chime in, just like, oh, Tiff, how did the rent thing come up? And it was like, it was as if she was just like, I was just trying to support my friend. But it was just like, no, this situation here was not, oh, hey, we're just chatting, just getting some stuff off our chest. No, this was serious. And for Mildred's story to be different, to say, because Tiff said, oh, you are admitting you threw the pet gate. I was like, oh, I mean, is this not an open file or something? Like,
literally.
I'm so confused.
I mean, and Mildred said it like, we broke up because Tiff did this horrible thing to me of calling the police, you know, and like, obviously, fuck the police. Like, you know, I'm not pro police or involving them in any situation particular, but like to look at that situation and be like, the problem here is what Tiff did to me, instead of like really owning her role in it. Obviously, I mean, it's like this feels like almost like like it's like weird to even talk about it, because it's like this isn't like a messy reality show opinion. It's like this is like real shit, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, you see in the way that this conversation is unfolding and the way that it's like so toxic and not like, you can just see the gaslighting vibes. It's just like, this is not something that we should be discussing in this forum. Like, this is a different thing.
Exactly.
You know?
That's what makes it so hard to have like an opinion on it, because it's just like,
Right.
this is real.
Yeah.
And the fact that it got to the point where Tiff had to storm out, and I really appreciated Sam following after Tiff.
Mhm.
Like, this was so supportive, and it reminds you, like, wait, they did share an experience in their trial marriage, like where they developed a genuine friendship. So I appreciated that. So Tiff didn't feel alone. Tiff felt suffocated, and like Tiff couldn't say anything and wasn't being heard, because what prompted Tiff to storm out was Mildred, like, every time you speak, it's like it hurts my ears. So we just go from all of this serious accusation, all of this gaslighting, all of this not allowing Tiff to speak, and then finally for Tiff to have the moment to speak because you've run out of things to throw at the wall, you resort to pettiness. Like, I can't stand your voice. Ugh. Like, what are we doing here, Mildred?
Yeah.
I think this is a scenario where I'm just not going to understand how Mildred thinks that any of this was like a good look for her. You know, like I don't
Yeah.
know. Like it's it's confusing. It really is. And I felt for Tiff here, and you know, I haven't been Tiff's biggest fan throughout all of this necessarily. I think they both have a lot to learn about communicating skills, but there is a massive difference between, oh, you're not compatible in a relationship because you can't communicate, and you're doing something violent and frankly illegal, you know, like
Yeah.
there's a difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I liked seeing Sam go after Tiff, because not only did they share their time together, but I think it also is very representative of Sam's nurturing side. And
Yes.
like and I was happy that also when Sam left, Sam said, like, not just, oh, I'm gonna go comfort Tiff, but like, I don't appreciate how this just went down with all of the anger being directed at one person, and I want to go make sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
And like, I will, like, the one thing that I think was good on the production side was, I'm so glad they didn't make Tiff go back and actually let them leave.
Yeah.
Which, like, I wasn't sure was going to be the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Even the eyeliner comment, I'm like, y'all both wear makeup.
I know.
Neither one of y'all uses eyeliner. Like, I own eyeliner and don't put it on every day, but it's there.
And this is what I'm saying. None of these little moments, this isn't like a investigative show where we're going to try to figure out exactly what was the truth in all of this. It's like the truth is probably somewhere in the middle for all of these little arguments. That's not the point. Like, you're broken up. We don't need to rehash every issue that you've had. Like, there were probably hundreds of them based on what we've seen on the show. Like, it's just different than what we actually got. So
Yeah.
Anyway.
So they end the reunion on Sam and Aussie. They're not married
happy
yet.
Couple.
Yeah. Still together. That's it. Family still doesn't know.
No, still doesn't know. And for the couple that is still engaged and still together here and seems to be in a good place, didn't get a ton about them specifically. Like, it was a lot about like Ozzy saying that they had a lot of self-discovery throughout all of this and still have more of that. Pretty much nothing from Sam about how Sam feels about the relationship. And then we got a decent amount of commentary from both Lexi and Rae on them. Like, Rae identifying with Ozzy, needing space, Lexi respecting Sam's ability to give that space and learning from that. And then talk about the family not knowing. And that was, I mean, was there anything else? That was almost it. Like, we pretty much didn't get like a glimpse into what their relationship is like, though, now.
I think the problem is that they wanted it the way that this was edited, it felt like they wanted Lexi and Rae to be the super shining success story.
Right.
And like, oh yeah, also Aussie and Sam did end up together, but look at Lexi and Rae. Aren't
Right.
they great?
Dropped the ball on that one, didn't
And
they?
then they're
Right.
like, oh no, Lexi suspects Rae of cheating.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is somewhere that like, if they're trying to like clearly they, for whatever reason, it wasn't a good TV product, or like they didn't have it of like the actual like meat of this relationship. Like we just really have so little about them, I feel like. But like you could stop down on like, and of like, really the family doesn't know. What do you think that's going to be like when you tell them, and also that tell them that you did this on a reality show, and like, you know what I mean? That's just like wild. Like, and
Yeah.
I don't think anyone should come out to anyone before they're ready, but like, you don't like, this is so avoidant. Like you are literally filming a TV show, and like, honestly, like who knows what these parents are, how, what sort of grace they deserve or anything, but like that is the biggest bomb ever. Like
Mhm.
not just like, hey, I'm coming out, and I'm engaged to this person that you've heard nothing about, and we did this whole thing on a TV show. Like it's just like, that is wild. Like,
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was surprising that them being our only couple, we have very little. But maybe it was just like they're like, we just don't have that much footage to pull to put on in the reunion to kind of switch it up.
I appreciated the fact that this reunion was mostly about where are you now and less about what happened. Like, tell us more about your reactions to the show. I think that sometimes that can be nice, and that works really well in Love Is Blind, where there's a lot more overlap between people. But with this one, with the exception of Yoli and Xander, like none of the other couples from the swapped groups really had a lot that they were like, wow, fascinating to see this revealed or whatever. And I think the structure of the show mostly lends to that, because ideally once you get back together with your original partner, you do debrief a decent amount. Like I think that dinner table talk, a lot is revealed about what happened. So there's not a whole lot of like revealing things to highlight, which is nice.
Yeah, and I do think also like, I think because of, especially I feel like the comparison I'm really thinking about is Love Is Blind, and I think also with like the way the like gender breakdown ends up happening, that it just like so often is kind of like the men versus the women, or like the women with like a couple of the good men versus the shitty men. Like I just feel like there's like these like very obvious teams that often takes away from like the actual discussion of like the real conflict originally, and I feel like this, it really was just focused on mostly the people who should be talking about the thing, and we don't need like so much of anyone else's like just like being like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
any other thoughts on the reunion as a whole? I mean, I agree with you, Mary. I did appreciate this being a more where are they now centered. It was so appropriate because we've crossed so much time, and that's what we want to know. That's our true question. So, any other thoughts about the reunion?
No, I mean, this show, unlike Love Is Blind and other shows, it's not really about like trying to optimize the number of success stories. This show really is more about let's analyze a relationship, and then as the people in it and the audience determine whether or not they should or shouldn't be together. So it's not, I don't think it's necessarily always right to say like, oh, well, because there's one continued engagement, there's only 1 out of 5 success. It's like, I think the success for a lot of these couples is breaking up. Like that is the optimal result. Interestingly, I was looking back at season 1 and season 2. There were a lot more marriages that did result out of season 1, but I think a lot of those couples were sort of closer to marriage to begin with, because remember we had the one couple who like left the show at the beginning and never actually participated and basically just got married. We had 4 out of 5 engagements and then only 1 continued engagement, technically based after the end cap of Lexi and Rae no longer being together. And I don't necessarily think that that's like the worst outcome here. I think that there were times when I was looking at this saying none of these couples should still be together. And this isn't a movie or a TV show, or like, I mean, it is, but it's not like a scripted piece of content or a book. So you don't, the end of the story is not the engagement or even necessarily the marriage. Relationships are fluid things that change, that a year from now, these could all be different scenarios. And like that's what's hard about these shows too, is you want like a nice little happy bow wrapped up at the end, and you don't necessarily get that.
Yeah. And I just do, I mean, this format is so like, I just really do feel like these couples were all just like 1,000 times more compelling than any of like the Love is Blind couples, basically. And it's like, I think the way that it is that it's like, these are real relationships formed in the real world that then
Yes.
we're putting in this experiment, just like makes like so much more realness. I feel like, you know, like it's just like the amount of Love is Blind couples where like then it comes out like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like, Chelsea and Kwame, it's like, okay, so whatever, I don't know, their relationship was like super different than we understood it to be because of the edit, like maybe, or maybe everyone's just like being really fake all the time. Like I feel like we never like get to like anything. Whereas like in all of these, like eventually we get like real, like,
Yep.
you know, in a way that I just feel like, it is a very unique part of this format where people are bringing their real ass relationships into the chainsaw of reality TV. So.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, y'all, we did it. We covered this
We
season.
did. Hey, entertainment. I was
Yes.
like hooked the whole time. I really was.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
thank you so much, Evvie, for all of your great contributions. I feel like this was amazing having you here. So much insight, so much wisdom. Really appreciate you hosting this season with us.
My pleasure. Thank you both so much for having me. Yeah, it was such a ball. Feel like this was such a good, like, yeah, queer people make great mess on reality TV. Have more of us on. It delivered, right? I think we can all agree it delivered.
Yep.
So,
And
For
I'm glad to
sure.
see that there have been TV show formats created now where it's not like, oh, but how do we include a couple queer couples? It's like, guess what? You could just have the whole cast like do that. Like that's okay.
exactly.
Yeah, and that goes to say also like shout out to everyone who agreed to be on this show. Like if whether or not you're ever listening to this or someone you know is, it takes a lot to want to put your relationship at its highs and lows in front of a bunch of people who can now critique it. So thank you for your willingness to do that and for our entertainment basically.
Yeah. And thank you, Joanna, for just hosting it as you knew how.
Yeah. You know what, like, and I know we've complained, but like nothing particularly offensive there, just like not necessarily adding a lot where there could have potentially been avenues to have someone who was a little bit more relevant.
There are options out there.
Yes. Emphasis on nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, thank y'all. Thank you to all you listeners.
Everybody. Thanks everybody.
Everybody for listening to us and giving us feedback and interacting on social media about like listening to the podcast or making suggestions. So we really appreciate all of y'all and all of our guests this season. That was a fun time. So Evvie, where can people follow you and keep up with you?
I am on Instagram and Twitter at Evvie Jagoda. My TikTok is still hacked with the same handle. Please go ahead and report that. I want to see this great Ultimatum TikTok content, and I cannot. Yes, and check out, we have a new season of The Pride Has Spoken, the first episode featuring my wonderful co-hosts Grace and Matt Scott. Interviewing Carla from season 43 came out the other day, and it's a wonderful conversation, and I really hope people check it out. So, you know, the queer discussion about reality TV doesn't have to end now that the ultimatum is over. So go ahead and check out everything going on with The Pride Has Spoken. And yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Lovely. And Mary, where can people follow and keep up with you?
You can follow me everywhere at Frail Mary and also Trail Mary on TikTok as well. And this was such a great season. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you again, Evvie, for joining us as well. What about you, Aysha?
Yeah,
where can everyone follow you?
Yeah, y'all can follow me everywhere at Aysha like Asia. That's AYSHA like ASIA. Still podcasting about Married at First Sight. I was before we started covering this season of the Ultimatum, and I am still. We're on our 23rd episode of this season. They don't end. But if you are not even watching, you just want an entertaining podcast, come listen to Jason Reed and I talk about this show. And, you know, we make it so that you don't even have to watch the episodes. We watch it so that you don't have to. The leading up to Big Brother 25, there will be Big Brother coverage this summer. So check me out there. Just if you follow me, I'll post when I will be on one of those off-season podcasts leading up to Big Brother 25. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening to us. We had a blast talking about this season. Make sure you go follow all of the cast on TikTok or Instagram so we can all be updated on where they are today. But thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Bye.